Thank you, Pierpaolo, for inviting me to moderate this first session of the conference. And before introducing the distinguished speakers who will participate in the discussion, let me first say how much I and so many other colleagues in the international system appreciate the unique mix of wisdom, vision, practical experience, and success stories, and a sincere desire to make a distinct contribution to the broader UN mission of peace and development that you, Pierpaolo, and these conferences bring to the table. These conferences, as I said last time, walk the talk in more ways than one. Over the past several years, the themes of ICT and now of artificial intelligence that characterize the info-poverty agenda have been gaining an increasingly central place in the international debate. But this conference has been doing much more than simply providing evidence of the importance of these technologies in world affairs. They have constantly sought to relate the contribution of this technology to specific UN initiatives and goals. And they have done so not only by talking about the good that they can do, but walking us through the many concrete initiatives sponsored by information poverty that show that it can be done, and with limited resources, if vision and political will are there. These conferences walk the talk not only with respect to what is on their agenda, but also importantly in relation to who they bring on the table. At the UN, we speak constantly about whole society processes, approaches, the imperative to bring into the international discourse on peacekeeping and peace building and development, along with governments, the private sector, academia, civil society, women as well as men, and the young along with the old. This, however, quite often results in little more than tokenism. At this poverty conferences, we may tend to discriminate in favor of the very old vis-à-vis the young, and I am the proof of this bias. But for the rest, a deliberate effort is evident to ensure that all of the different stakeholders who not only have something to say, but can also help make it happen, all have a place at the table of these conferences as equal partners. The choice of artificial intelligence as a central topic of this year's conference could not be more timely. In terms of the policy discourse taking place around the world, and equally in terms of the ongoing debates here at the UN and across the UN governance structure, the General Assembly and the Economic and Social Council, and also importantly, the Security Council. Artificial intelligence had a central place in the Secretary General, our common agenda, which was a visionary document that it was mandated to produce by the summit held to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the organization, and in the many initiatives that sprang from that agenda, including the important summit of the future that will convene here at the UN this coming September, and my colleague Mr. Anif referred to it. Externally, policy discussions and the policy debate on artificial intelligence tend to focus on the threats, the dangers that the unchecked evolution of artificial intelligence may pose, while the scientific debates tend to focus on the great potential benefit that artificial intelligence promises, particularly in the economic sphere. Here at the UN, the emphasis, as again we have heard from Mr. Anif, is on global governance and on international cooperation and knowledge sharing, with a particular emphasis on unleashing its potential for accelerating the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals that are currently lagging significantly behind in many areas. Both outside and inside the UN, we have a long way to travel to fully grasp the totality of the potential, but also the risk that artificial intelligence carries. But we'd better hurry up in this travel because the speed, as we were reminded before, the speed of development of this technologies is spectacular and unprecedented. For what it's worth, my take is that it is in the arena of values, in the larger struggle for peace building, for human rights and social and environmental justice, that the effort to harness the great potential of artificial intelligence for good will succeed or fail. And failure would have major negative cascading effects on the drive for both peace and development. The mix of challenges that the world is facing today, of which artificial intelligence is an increasingly important part, is extremely complex. It carries major threats along with significant promise. It seems to me that it will be our capacity to tackle these challenges at the core in a truly integrated way that will determine any chance we may have to make renewed concrete progress towards the peaceful, inclusive, and just societies rooted in the rule of law that the 2030 Agenda with its SDGs is calling for. What I mean by the core is the culture, the governing spirit that will prevail in the period ahead. In our speeches here at the UN, we keep talking about the poly crisis, the interrelated political, economic, social, and environmental crisis that we are currently confronting. I have in mind an even deeper core. Agenda 2030 has reminded us that there is no development without peace and no lasting peace without development. Contrary to this reminder, we are observing these days a clear recurring setbacks from the culture of peace that the UN Charter sought to enshrine, and a reversal to a culture of the past, where war is viewed as a perhaps unfortunate but inevitable way of winning disputes and settling conflicts. This is being fueled by growing divisiveness within and among countries, and by waning trust in the institution and government. In my view, these are the basic trends that must be reversed as a condition to ensure that malicious application of artificial intelligence to spread falsehoods, fuel mistrust, and victimize people are effectively countered, and the great potential that artificial intelligence carries to advance and sustain humanity's progress can be effectively exploited. Progress in advancing the rule of law is equally critical. The rule of law, as distinct from rule by law, means advancing laws, policies, and institutions that are people-centered and geared to combating inequalities and to furthering justice and inclusion. As such, the rule of law and the ethos that it represents are the essential foundation to orient and sustain the legal and policy framework that are necessary to ensure that the potential that artificial intelligence carries as a force for good, as a global public good, can be fully realized. Ultimately, artificial intelligence is a striking manifestation of the amazing advances that human knowledge can introduce for the common good. But artificial intelligence also represents a major challenge to human nature to ensure that both the ethical and the political environments are there for these advances to truly serve the interest and welfare of people everywhere. It is encouraging to see that these sentiments addressing the potential of artificial intelligence as a global public good are guiding many of the initiatives underway these days at the UN, and I was very pleased to hear that the same is true in terms of policies by the government of my country and the European Union. In terms of initiatives underway at the UN, you have heard from Mr. Hanif. I'm thinking of the comprehensive resolution on artificial intelligence recently adopted by the General Assembly that seeks to encapsulate the many policy statements and instruments and pronouncements produced by a range of agencies by the UN system, and the Global Digital Compact currently being negotiated under the aegis of the General Assembly as part of the preparation for the summit of the future. It is to be hoped that these advances towards effective global governance will be accompanied by concrete progress within the international community towards creating a broader international environment, ethos conducive to artificial intelligence becoming the crucial agent for progress and change that it can be. Let me stop here, and I'd like to introduce our distinguished speakers. Let me begin with Ms. Belinda Bisco, Senior Associate Vice President at the University of Oklahoma. I see that Ms. Bisco is a psychologist, but also an educator and a strong advocate for civil engagement, and I'm sure she will have a great deal of insights to contribute to this meeting, Ms. Bisco.